So we have started to make changes to our new copy of this Jupyter notebook for Physics and Music Lab Activity 1. I have placed in some numerical values into this code cell and then run the code cell, and it spits out an answer for me. It tells me that the wave speed is this number. Now, what I now need to do is start answering some questions about this. I need to start to turn this calculation work that I've done into a narrative, into a story that I can actually turn in as my letter home. Or at least in my class, it's a letter home. In other classes, you might submit this directly to the learning management system. But what I need to do now is scroll down to here, our first text cell that we are going to change. So like, for example, here, I see first speed calculation. Now that the code cell above has all the values it needs, run it to calculate the wave speed in the Slinky. Oh, here's the wave speed. That is the thing I calculated. And then it asks me, what is the wave speed? Based on the units on your distance and time, what are the units of this wave speed, distance over time? I need to start adding my answers to these. And you might notice that I've put this text in red. Your goal in completing this assignment is to eventually remove all of the red text. You want to remove all of the red text and replace it with your text. The way you do that is double click on the text cell itself. So I'm going to double click here. And you notice it comes up with something that looks a little bit code-ish. I see that it has the text here. So now that the code cell above has all the values, et cetera, et cetera. And if you look on the right here, I'm getting a little preview. This setup here is written in something called Markdown. Markdown is like HTML Lite, where I can do things like change the font color. I can do things like add bolding. I can do things like add little code formatting. You don't really need to do any of that. You just need to add your answers to this. So here you might add an answer to the question, what was the wave speed? And you might say the wave speed is, and then take this value, copy, paste it in. Copy, let's double click back in here, paste. Now you notice when I left the text cell, it automatically saved it. So like if I click outside of the text cell, it leaves the editor window, but it has saved my work here, right? It has saved the wave speed is, et cetera, et cetera. Now in class, we'll talk about how to round things. This is way too many significant digits. I think calling this 1.7 and rounding it to that is probably fine. Based on the units, let's see, my distance was in meters and my time was in seconds, so I need to put a slash there for those two. And now that I've finished this, I don't need all of this introduction anymore. So like, for example, I don't need this header here, and I don't need these instructions to myself anymore, so I'm going to delete those. And since I have completed this part of the assignment, I don't need this to be in red text anymore. So I can get rid of this little part that has the red formatting, and I can delete that. Well, look at that. It's now normal text here. And I can get rid of the red formatting here. Get rid of that. Oh, that's really cool. Now you notice I put these in the same block here. You actually need two carriage returns to separate a line. So a single carriage return, single enter is not enough. You need two for it to actually put them on a new line. That's just something you learn about as you go along. So now I have answered these questions. In my class, we're going to be submitting what are called letters home. We'll talk about that in class. But basically, you're going to want to turn this into a description. So rather than have question, answer, you'll eventually want to turn this into a paragraph describing what you did and how the code calculated that 1.47 and how you know this is meters per second. But for the purposes of working through the activity, this is fine. This is a fine intermediate state to sort of serve as your notes for then writing your letter home here in the Jupyter Notebook.